This is how I chose to install a Garmin XT2 onto my BMW GS 1300 adventure bike. The goal is to get both the Valentine 1 Gen 2 and the Garmin Zumo XT2 mounted to the 25 BMW GS Adventure 1300. I'm going to start with the Garmin because I think this is going to require a little bit more head scratching in terms of the bracket and wiring. And then ideally I can get this figured out and then the Valentine can just kind of go in place next to it. The bike came with this nav ready port, they call it. But what I found out is it's not necessarily ready for a Garmin out of the box. It's something to do with like an older model or something. So my understanding is that this is not going to work exactly with this. So the first thing we'll do is take the little cover off. Looks like it just snaps, unless there's a better way to do it. Maybe I was supposed to push this or something. I don't know. If you look at the bracket that comes with the Garmin, the back of it, there are 3 pins that it uses to get 12-volt wire. So you basically stick it on like this, and that's how it attaches. Now what I want is something that doesn't have this ball and just rigidly attaches up here. So ideally what I want to do is somehow use this interface, if I can, over here. And you can see here that there are 2 rows of pins, so it's clearly a different interface from this. The question is, can I somehow make this work? So the first thing I'll do is start taking this apart off the bike and then compare it to this and see if I can use it somehow, the two together, and Frankenstein something, or do I have to buy some kind of a specific bracket that will bolt to this bar here and attach somehow to the Garmin. As I learned on the S1000RR, BMW likes to use their Torx screws instead of a normal hex Allen wrench. I'm holding the back here with my finger because there's a nut back there that's going to fall off as soon as this screw is loose from it. So be real careful not to drop things down inside the mess here. There's that. There's a screw and a washer taken out there. Actually, it works even better if you just push the screw in as you're undoing it, because then the nut will fall off on your hand on the back side. And you just pry the screw out. Make sure to capture the washer. Basically stuck the short end up inside the nut and kind of jiggled it out till it's out. There's the back side of the bracket. And you can see that it's got the back half for that diameter of that bar. That's what we want to try to recreate. Now, unfortunately, this right here is where the front side that meets the bar is, and it's this big bulky thing with a key lock on it. So that would be the release for whatever the nav system they intended to use it with. And then we have this is hardwired into here. So that's your 12-volt power. We're going to be using that 12-volt power to power our Garmin as well as hopefully the radar detector. Now we have this guy, and we want to see if there's any way that we can use the two together. It does look like this piece back here comes off, so we could simply remove these nuts, pull that off, and have a flat piece. But that doesn't do us any good if we can't somehow get it attached there. All right, now that I've taken the back ball mount off, this is really the interface that we want. We just need to get it onto that bar. And the bolt holes do line up, which is nice. It's just, so here's where if I had a 3D printer, I would just print a back plate for this thing that had that same half circle here and screw it all together and it would be perfect. I do not have access to one here. I could order one, but I could also probably order a bracket on Amazon just as easy. So I guess I'll go look for that next. You actually could almost use standoffs, just even space it out with a bunch of washers or something too and make this work. But I'm trying to look for the quickest way to get from here to a solution. It's frustrating because this is so close to actually working. You could take this and the back plate and you have something that will assemble onto that bar, and you have this and the whole pattern matches these holes, but when you try to put it inserted like that, the holes just barely don't line up. It's so close yet so far. I've been looking on the web for something that would allow that interface for the Garmin to just bolt directly to here. I found a couple brackets that look like they might work, but maybe they're only one pair of bolts instead of two, so it might not be as stable. Some of them say they come in either 12 or 14 millimeter. This one is a 13 millimeter though, so I don't know if they just changed it for this year or what. The only one I found that has the correct 13 millimeter size said that it'll arrive between April 2nd and April 22nd. And today is March 12th, so that doesn't really work for me to wait that long. I had other options like stems coming out, but even those weren't the greatest. So I'm going to, the only piece that I know fits is the one that came with the bike. What I did is took the existing bracket that we had that had the housing and the lock mechanism, and I basically cut off this piece so that this can be on the front behind this, and then this piece can go in back. So I'm using the existing pieces so I know that they'll fit, and just mount it like that. That saves me having to wait. If I had access to a machine shop right here, I would have done this a lot prettier, but I basically took a hacksaw to the two edges I needed, and then took a grinder to get it fairly smooth, and then wet sanded with 600 grit to get it pretty smooth to the touch. And I'll hide the rough edges so it'll be okay. It's not perfect, but I'm trying to get functional right now. I can worry about making it pretty later if I want to. So that'll go here, this will go here, this will go in the background, and I'll have my mount. And when we put the sandwich together, we're going to be using the same hardware that we took out of it as well. So that should work just right. Do a quick test. And yep, the screws come right back there. That nut will hide in there so we don't have to take the shield off and get any wrenches behind it. And you can see the screw just peeks out, which will be perfect. We'll have that nut down in the recess, which means it can all be disassembled from the front without having to take the shield off and get any wrenches back here. Again, being real careful to capture the nuts on the backside with my fingers while I'm getting the thread started here. Now, obviously the wiring is still yet to come. The nav bracket is on, and the next thing is to figure out how to get the radar bracket on here so I can get everything put on and then wired. Now that I've accepted defeat and it's just not worth it trying to mount the radar in between the nav and the dash, I'm gonna mount it over here. I'll just do that in a separate video. I'll just finish up this video with the final details on mounting the nav system here. The first thing I'm going to do is center this. As if you recall, I had it biased to the left to try to make room to fit that radar over here. Now that that's not going to happen, I'll just put it dead in the center. Okay, that looks about right there. And I also want to get the angle correct before I tighten these screws. As long as it is clearing the windscreen, that's the main thing. So I'll snap it in place. This actually makes it easier to center this way too, having that screen on it. And from here, I'm going to want to shift it up a little bit. I still want room to get my fingers in there to press the release button. So I don't want it quite parallel to this because it's up higher. So I'm going to put it somewhere in between. That is about looking straight at it right there. I can still get my hand back here so I can remove it. And now I'm going to tighten these screws. Easily snaps into place and easily comes off. Now we just have the wiring issue to get through. This is the cable that comes with the mounting piece for the Garmin. So you can see I've got plenty of cable here. Now in the box with the Garmin, they do include an inline fuse, which you can use if you want. The thing that's unique about my situation is I'm going to be using the power for the nav to also fuel my radar over here. So this line here is fused back somewhere in the fuse box. It's already fuse protected. So if you're only going to use this line for the nav, I don't think you really need this because it's not coming like direct from the battery or anything. This is already fused, so you should be able to just go direct to it. In the case of what I'm trying to do using this power for the radar and this, I may want to use these in line with both components because if, let's say, one of them blows a fuse, I'd almost rather it blow the individual fuse. That way the other device can still continue to work. Again, the thing we don't like to do is to mess with our stock components, but I kind of have to in this case, so I'm going to snip it here. And these bikes are CAN bus, which means you don't want to just start connecting Scotch locks to everything. You want to be more careful about it. And that's why I'm only using these separate kind of fused sources for accessories, like the USB-C in here for the phone, this power for the nav and the radar, and then it'll be the DIN connector over here for the thermal imaging system. These are pretty small wires coming out of here. Oh, this is interesting. So you have a purple one. Don't know what that's for. Then we've got black and red. All right, we got the voltmeter out. I'm going to hit the power button. My blue light's coming on here, so I assume this also being switched power should come on. I'm gonna hit the red and the black, and I have a plus 13 volts, which is right, which means that my red is the hot, my black is the ground. Don't really know what the purple is for, but I don't need it. So those are the wires we want. Now I'm just going to do a functional test with the device. So I'm going to make sure that my this blue light's on. So that tells me that there's still power going to the accessories up here. So I'm going to give that a minute until that shuts off. All right, I just looked it up, and what it's saying is that the accessory circuit is rated at 5 amps up here, which includes this. So this is Google. If it's correct, it's saying that both the DIN and this total 5 amps, which means I may have issues when I go to put the thermal vision in. So let's do this first. Let's take a step at a time with it. All right, so now the red wire and the black wire are connected to the GPS mount from the power source. So if I put the Garmin in place and I turn it on, actually, I think once you apply power, it comes on. So let's try. I hit power, this comes on, and it came up. Okay, so that's a good sign. And it does say that it's charging. So that means that functionally, everything is correct. The red and black wires basically feed into this one. And the nav system is now functional. So the only thing I really have to do is, trim this down, clean up the wiring in that, put shrink tube over it and stuff, and festoon the wires behind here, tie them up where they need to be with strain relief and all that. That's good. The next video, I'll go through adding the radar detector, which I'm gonna branch off from this as well. So I'm gonna stop this video here. You see now how I chose to do this. Again, there are a lot of options for how to mount these things. You can either buy the ones that come ready to fit with the original BMW, and it's lockable and it's got the little hood to kind of protect it and everything. There are the adapter plates that move it down and over to fit in this one. This particular Garmin, the XT2, does not fit in the stock BMW one, which is why I chopped that off and just used it for a bracket. You can get other brackets that fit this 13.4 millimeter bar. A lot of ways to skin the cat. I just skinned mine the fastest. And it is functional. I'm happy with that. So look around before you do what I did. This is not the ideal choice because you really don't want to chop up factory parts if you can avoid it. I did choose to do it again because I was interested in getting this thing functional as fast as possible. But look around, look for other brackets, see what makes sense. Maybe you want a full nav system. Maybe you just want the device that basically clones your phone using CarPlay or Android Auto. Research your options, and then at least now you know where the power is coming from and how to connect if you need to do something similar. If you haven't done so, please click the link below to subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications, and let's live for today.